like I should start this by eating some candy. So, I mean, it is Halloween, right? So good, guys. I haven't had Reese's Pieces in so long. Oh, God. So good. Hi, guys. I'm Jessica. Welcome back to my channel, and happy Halloween! Hi, guys. Welcome back. Thanks so much for being here. And we are filming today on my very favorite holiday, which is Halloween. I'm so excited that today is Halloween. It's perfect. It's a Saturday. I get to stay in, watch scary movies, eat really unhealthily. I don't know, but I get to indulge in candy, which is so exciting. I actually bought this bag of Reese's Pieces. Unfortunately, my boyfriend thought this was for him, so he dove right in prematurely. So I do have an open bag of Reese's, but I'm gonna enjoy it and I'll eat healthy tomorrow. So I decided I'm gonna do my October wrap up of all of the books that I have read in October. I had a pretty solid reading month. The books ranged from really good to really bad. So here are my reviews of the books and my October wrap up. Without further ado, let's get into it. So the very first book that I read in October was The Whisper Man by Alex North. I'm not going to dive too much into this book because I actually did a full video review of this, so do make sure you go and watch that so you can see my full review of it. But essentially this book is about a man and his son who move into this creepy house, and they are haunted, not really haunted, but they are followed by this ghostly figure that is called the Whisper Man, who essentially captures children and then kills them, lures them in by whispering. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I thought that it wasn't scary, but it definitely gave me some chills, definitely gave me some creepy vibes. I really sped through this book because it was very gripping from beginning to end. I thought that it was just fantastic, and I actually really liked the characters in this book. So yeah, very, very good. Go watch my full review to get a more in-depth look at The Whisper Man, but I highly recommend this one. It was a pretty solid one. The only thing I think I didn't really like is I wish they dove more into the Whisper Man himself. I thought that that character could have been fleshed out a little bit more, but other than that, pretty solid. So this next book that I read is called Tinder is the Flesh by Agustina Bazterrica, or Bazterrica. I don't know. I'm probably getting this name very wrong, but it is an Argentina writer, so this is a translated work. And oh my gosh, holy hell, this book is so good. Definitely one of my favorites for the year. Just took me by so much surprise. I absolutely love this book. So the book is about, it's a very dystopian novel, but it is about essentially at one point in time, animals were considered poisonous to humans. So if they were consumed or if you were near them, it could be extremely deadly. So all the animals have been eradicated from Earth, or maybe just their country. It doesn't really go into it, but essentially animals are pretty much, you know, don't touch them, don't eat them, so they are killed. I think killed in a mass. I think that's what it goes into. However, instead of consuming the animals for protein and for meat, we are in the book, they essentially consume humans as meat and their source of living and protein. So it focuses on our character. His name is Marcos. He works actually at a human meat plant processing, or human plant meat processing, in that order, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, so he works at a processing plant where essentially they breed and process human beings as meat. So the same way that you would eat a slice of chicken or a hamburger, you can go to the grocery store and get this special meat, they call it, and eat, you know, human flesh. Well, in the novel, Marcos is gifted with a human of his own to pretty much take home and use as meat for his house. But instead, he ends up developing feelings and emotions for this human person, this being, this pretty much this piece of meat. As you can imagine, he not only grapples with coming to terms with us eating human beings as our source of life and protein, but also grappling with, you know, having a human and developing feelings and a real connection with a product of sort, or a human being that's supposed to be used as for consumption. This book absolutely blew me away, as I stated before. It is very, very gripping, and I will say it has a lot of body horror in this book. Lots of blood, lots of cutting up body parts. It is extremely graphic. It also is has a lot of sexual horror in it as well. So if you are very sensitive to those topics like blood and chopping up body parts and a lot of sexual horror, I would not recommend this. I especially would not recommend reading this after you have just eaten a meal, or maybe right before, because yeah, it definitely talks a lot about eating human body parts. But I just thought this book was so simple yet incredibly stunning to read. I read this in like a day. It's so quick. I think it's like, yeah, it's about 200 pages long. Reads incredibly well. I will say, again, it has lots and lots of body horror. But one of my favorites for the year, definitely, I highly recommend this if you do not have a weak stomach, or you're able to kind of put up with the blood and the eating of humans, because it does have a lot of cannibalism in it, obviously. But it is absolutely gorgeous. Definitely one of my favorites for the year. Alright, the next book I read was Pet Semetary by Stephen King. I'm also not going to deep dive into this because I also did film a book review of this, so make sure to go check that out. But yeah, this was my first Stephen King novel that I read, and I did not like this book at all. I absolutely hated this book. I'm sorry. Like, this was just not a good book. It was so boring. Like, so boring for almost 400 pages long. I mean, I was just waiting for the big, you know, the big moment that happens in a scary novel, but I just never got it. Yeah, I just thought the characters could have been fleshed out a little bit more. I didn't think that it was scary. It was incredibly boring. There was just so many minute details that really were just not important to the story, in my opinion. So it is about a family that moves to this house, and in their backyard they have these woods, and it opens up to this cemetery where if you bury your pet, that pet essentially comes back to life. And then once their son dies, oops, spoiler, their son dies, but they bury their son, and then we see what happens from there. But yeah, I don't know. I just didn't like it that much. I thought that the main character, Dr. Lewis Creed, he was interesting. But outside of that, I really just did not like this book. It was just not scary, and I thought that it was so hefty for a book that could have been down to maybe like 300, maybe 250 pages, definitely not 400. But yeah, it got 2 stars from me, and that's saying a lot. So the next book I read was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, and let's just get into, first of all, this absolutely stunning cover. I don't know if you guys can see it, but this beautiful copy of Frankenstein that I have, it's actually really vintage. It's falling apart too, so I have to be really careful with it. I don't even like want to touch it. But it is an old library book, and I believe it's from the 70s. I got it off eBay, and it's so gorgeous. I have to be really careful with the pages because it is very delicate. So I actually read half of this book, and then I finished it on audiobook with LibriVox, which, yikes. The LibriVox was just not good. Was just not a good edition of Frankenstein. We all know how LibriVox is. Pretty much anyone and everyone can record on LibriVox, so it just was really boring. But I will say the story of Frankenstein is very beautiful. I love the allusions to religion and playing God in the story. I love the aspect of humankind. As you know, Frankenstein is not the monster, which I was like today years old when I realized that Frankenstein is actually the doctor and it's Frankenstein's monster. So, you know, there's that. I was like, wow, I am not the brightest light bulb in the bunch today. But I thought that it was really beautiful. If you do have a chance to read Frankenstein, it's a classic. Definitely recommended. I think I gave this one 3 stars simply because the beginning part of the story was a bit slow in my opinion, but it definitely picks up towards the latter part of the story. Outside of that, I just think it has really great themes that can be found throughout. It's not just about the doctor creating this monster, but it has so much to do with just humankind, playing God, religion, all of that sort. So interesting story, very beautiful. I think that, you know, it's a classic and I enjoyed it. So yeah, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I feel like now is a good time to eat some more candy. So good. Chocolate always wins, you know? So good. Wow. I feel like I need water after that though. So the last book that I read in October was The Secret History by Donna Tart. And oh my gosh. I could go on about this book forever. It is definitely a huge favorite of mine for the year. I gave this book 5 stars. Just absolutely incredible. I am still thinking about this book and how beautifully it was written. But it is about 6 students. They study at this very elite and prestigious New England university. They actually study with this very eccentric professor who reminds me a lot of Robin Williams' character in, what is that movie called? Dead Poets Society. So they study with the professor that is kind of similar to him, kind of unorthodox. They study the classics like Greek literature and language. And in the midst of their friendship, there is a death, well, murder. And the story really does focus on this murder being the very focal and center point of their friendship. And so we can see how this murder really plays into not only their friendship, but also who they are as people. And then it's also about, it's a little bit of like a mystery, but it's kind of like, you know, who's going to tell, whose truth is really going to come out. I just thought this was so beautiful. I know there's a lot of mixed opinions with The Secret History. It's like you either love it or you don't. And I absolutely loved it. It is a bigger read. So this thing is almost 600 pages. So it is a long read, but I thought it was so worth it. Her writing is something that, I mean, Donna Tart is just an incredible writer. She knows exactly how to pull you in and make you stay there until the very end, and I just love it. Definitely a favorite of mine. I will say I was a little disappointed, like the way that it ended. I just have thoughts like, why, Henry? Why? Just why? And if you have read the book, then you know. But yeah, so that's the only part I probably didn't like, was towards the end. I just didn't like how it unraveled, especially when Henry makes the decision that he does. I just thought there, you know, something else was going to come out of it. But anyway, still incredible. I'm so happy that I ended with this book because it is definitely going to stay in my mind for a very long time. So if you like Dead Poets Society, if you like reading about students at university, if you like a little bit of, you know, a thriller, a little bit of a mystery, then I would say this one is so gorgeous. Yeah, definitely a favorite of mine. All right, folks, so that wraps it up for all of the books that I read in October. I will say I had a pretty solid month. I mean, there were a few books that I was a little disappointed in, but overall it was a solid month. Anyway, I overall had a pretty good month of reading. Lots of creepy books that I read, some books that I will definitely remember for a lifetime and that I probably will never recommend again. So was a mixed month, but that's okay. Hopefully next month will be a little bit better. I hope you guys have a lovely Halloween. I'm going to enjoy this bag of Reese's today, so I'm excited about that. Please make sure, if you haven't, go ahead and check out all of my videos that I post on my YouTube. And don't forget to follow me on my Instagram so you can stay up to date with everything that I post. Have fun tonight, kids. Be safe. Go vote, most importantly. And I will see you next time on my video. Bye.